a video on me faffing around with something. So I want to have a go at making a dehydrated stock. Now, have faffed around with this in the past. If we take vegetables and dehydrate them and think we can make a stock out of that, that's not going to work, because all we're really going to do is dehydrate them so they turn into a fine powder, and as soon as we add water back to that, it's going to turn into a vegetable puree, which is not what we want. We actually just want the liquid stock dehydrated down to a powder. So I've just made a quick, easy carrot stock using the carrot peelings. I'm not going to use it for anything else, so it's better off to use a little bit of waste up. So boil up the carrot peelings in water, puree them down, pass them through a cloth, squeeze out the excess juice, and then we're left with a stock. We're going to reduce that stock down, dehydrate it, get rid of all the liquid out of it, and see what's left afterwards. I'm not going to dehydrate that out because we've taken all the flavour out of it, so it's a redundant product now that we can't do anything with. Or we could put it into if we've just done normal vegetables, we could just turn it into, add it to a soup to kind of add it as a bulking agent. It's a little bit of flavour in there, but not much. So heat that up and then reduce it down, but do it gently. We don't want to caramelise the stock on the sides of the pan, so what I'll do is I'll heat it up, reduce it down by half, and then I think I'll put it in a enamel container in the hot cupboard to slowly evaporate off. I think that's going to be for the best. Right, so stock is reduced, and any kind of stock residue that's up around the sides of the pan, I've just used a pastry brush just to kind of wet that and make it so we've not lost any of that kind of flavour. So into an enamel tray. We don't want anything like aluminium or anything like that that might oxidise. So stainless steel will be fine, a pot one, or anything kind of enamel. And then we'll just stick that in the hot cupboard. Not directly on hot cupboard bottom. Just put the plate underneath it, and then it'll evaporate, and then we'll see if we're left with any residue powder. Right, so it's all evaporated off and it's gone sticky and stuck to the bottom of the tray. So it's gone hard like that. So let's just leave it like that and see if it crystallises. Otherwise we'll just have to put a little bit of water in there and just to get it, it's gone all sticky, right, so it's gone like that, so it's gone sticky, so that might be down to the sugars in the carrot. So we'll just see what happens with that overnight, but it doesn't matter that it's stuck to that. It's not a failed experiment, but I once made some whey. I made some dried whey powder. Now what happened with it, the same thing happened, and then it crystallised and turned into granules. So it might do the same thing with this. So I'm not going to leave it in the hot cupboard any longer. We'll leave it like that, and it might start to crystallise overnight, and then we'll kind of see what happens. But if I have to add a little bit of water and get it out of that container, and then maybe dry it out on some baking parchment or something like that, I'll just do that and it'll be fine. Right, so this has dried. It's still a little bit sticky. So the only problem is, if we're going to grind it into a powder, it'll probably just want to go into like a paste more than anything. I think that it's just down to the fact that it's got lots of natural sugars in it, so I think it's going to be very difficult without adding some kind of anti-caking additive. I think that's what an anti-caking additive is. It stops things from sticking together, from caking, like forming a cake. Not a cake as in like a sponge cake, but like a solid block on the bottom of a container. So it's also darkened in colour as well, so it's obviously started to caramelise sugars as well. So I'm going to put this in a container. It's getting a bit late now. I don't want to be faffing around with it anymore tonight. So I'm going to put it in a container. But I think it's a bit of a faff, is this? I don't think it's a viable way of preserving a vegetable stock. Just turn it into a powder. It seems like a lot of work. I think the best thing to do is to freeze as and when you get vegetable peelings and offcuts and trimmings and vegetables that you aren't going to use for anything else. I think the best thing to do is to chop them up roughly, stick them in a container and freeze them, and then preserve them that way. And then when you've got a container full, would then be to make a stock that way. And then if you weren't going to use the stock, you could then freeze that stock to preserve it. I think that would be the kind of the best way to do it. I don't think this is the best idea. Now watch me just pour those into there. So I think from my point of view, I'm always curious about things, but for most people, I don't think that it would be a viable thing to do, is to turn it into a powder, unless we're going to do something with the powder, you know, as if we're going to sprinkle it on something, or try some miracle we found out about it. But it's gone a little bit like, looks a little bit like cinder toffee. Yeah. But anyway, so I'll tell you what, let's just boil a bit of water, and then we'll just add some of it to some water, and we'll see what happens. Right, so I've got some in a glass, that's in a jar. I think it's just going to stick together, and let's just add some boiling water and see what. Oh no, let's taste it first. Well, I've already tasted it, but let's do it on camera, like I'm a professional, like it's some kind of experiment that I haven't done before. You know, that's really interesting. It's really interesting. Do you know if it was a bit? Okay, so it's like a savoury or slightly sweet, but it's kind of savoury, like that sweet that you put on your tongue and it crackles. As soon as it touches the water, it kind of wants to crackle. I forgot what it's called. But it tastes a little bit like that. But it's got a bit of an umami-ness to it. I saved some of the fresh stock so we can have a look. Go and have a look and see what we think. So it's certainly darkened in colour. So that was the fresh stock. So let's pour some water in and see what happens, and see if it just reconstitutes itself kind of quite easily. Maybe, yeah. Suppose if it was a fine powder it would. Let's just come back to a. Let's get a bit off there. I don't want to taste that. I think that needs some more water in it. Very difficult to kind of know how much of the powder to add water to get it to the same kind of flavour as the fresh one, because I didn't measure the amount of stock that there was, and I haven't weighed the amount of powder that we've got. So that's going to be kind of quite difficult. So that's obviously going to be stronger than that. So it might be the same-ish, because that's slightly caramelised. But we lost quite a lot of this. We lost some of the stock through the evaporation process, you know. And there was a little bit of residue left on the greaseproof paper. So how's this taste? Not that dissimilar from that. That's more concentrated, so needs more liquid in. But you know, that's kind of worked. We've kind of made like a powdered stock. It's I suppose if there was more things in, like celery and leeks, then there wouldn't be as much sugar as there is with the carrots. And onions, there'd be a lot of sugar in those as well. So it is a powdered stock. You know, add some salt to that. A lot of stocks and things have quite a lot of salt in them, just as a way of making them go further. So what does that taste like? It's not bad, you know, actually. That's not bad. You know, if we'd have used lots of different types of vegetables, so like carrot peelings, well, if we were making a rough one, sure, like odds and sods stock, like butternut squash peelings, celery, onions, carrot peelings and trimmings, leeks, maybe some herbs in there, and we'd have made a stock and we reduced it down to powder, probably, and put some salt in it, it probably would have been particularly very good. It's not unpleasant. It tastes nicer. It tastes nicer than the stock powders and stock cubes that you buy, in all honesty. You know, I find those a little bit too, it's almost like they've added mushrooms to them and got like this overpowering kind of flavour to them. But anyway, so probably quite a long video by the time I finished. So, but me faffing around with trying to make a powdered stock, so it kind of works. I mean, it's a bit of a faff, but if you really want to save some space and you haven't got freezer or anything like that, you know, you're cutting down on the freezer space, or you know, the freezer's not very big, and you want to kind of preserve these things, then there you go. Interesting. No doubt something I will have a think about for the future. So, but anyway, I think that's kind of quite a success, because it's interesting and I learned a few things. But there we go, success.